loves you criticizes, as long as it's coming from love and for constructive criticism, embrace it. Look at it as a blessing and a message God is sending you directly. This week we are learning Parashat Vaetchanan. It's a very special parasha. A lot goes on. The beginning of the Torah portion primarily speaks about prayer and Moses praying. But this week, Zera Shimshon pays attention to another, in my opinion, very interesting topic we're soon all going to learn a tremendous lesson from. The verse is in chapter 6, verse 25, and I'll quote, Utzdaka tiye lanu, and it will be a merit for us. Merit or charity for us, we're soon going to see. Ki nishmor la'asot et kol ha-mitzvah azot, when we are able to fulfill all of this mandate of the Torah, Lifnei Adonai Elohenu, in front of God our Master, Ka'asher tzivanu, as He has commanded us. So Zera Shimshon asks, what does it mean to say that it will be tzedakah for ourselves? It will be tzedakah for us. Utzdaka tiye lanu. Charity for myself? What, I'm going to give myself charity? Again, this is the Chumash. This is Moses writing this in the Torah, and it will be charity for ourselves? He asks, what does that mean? He shares three answers. Listen to the first. The first is based on a verse later on in the Torah, as it says, V'haya im shamoa tishmeu el mitzvotai, and if you will heed to the words of the mandate of the mitzvot, asher anochi mitzaveh etchem hayom, as God has given us today, to love them, le'ava et Hashem Elokechem, to love God and to fulfill, ulovdo b'chol levchem uv'chol nafshechem, and to serve Him with all of our heart and all of our soul. We are in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 13, and now we're going to verse 14. And then when we fulfill this mandate, the Torah, the commandments God has given us, V'natati metar artzechem be'ito yoreh umalkosh, and God will give the rain and let it gather on our land. V'asafta deganecha v'tiroshcha v'tzerecha, and then we'll be able to take our grain and our wine and our oil, in other words, all of our produce. So what's the Torah telling us, as Zera Shimshon says? That when a person fulfills the will of God, it enables God to shower down livelihood and blessing on us. So that's what his first interpretation is on this verse. Utzdaka tiye lanu, and let it be as a charity and merit for us, that when we fulfill the mitzvot in the Torah, it enables God to provide for us. That's his first answer. That's a simple answer. Listen to the next answer. The next answer is referring to an individual who teaches Torah or shares any Torah concepts or thoughts that they have learned to others, specifically for free. Now, what's so special about sharing Torah, teaching Torah for free? Because if we pay attention, God gave the Jewish people the Torah for free. He didn't charge us for it. However, He charged us with many responsibilities, do's and don'ts. But on a monetary level, God did not charge us to give us the Torah. And therefore, since He gave it to us for free, when we give Torah over for free to others, free could be without a monetary remuneration, or as well with no ulterior motives. Literally for free, for the love of Torah, for the purity of Torah, for the insight and the wisdom of Torah. Then what happens? V'tzidkato omedet la'ad. God's righteousness and His justice and His blessing will stay with that individual who shares Torah for free forevermore. So that's what he says, Utzdaka tiye lanu. You know what will be a great merit and a great charity for yourself? Is when you share Torah in a very pure and free way. Now the third answer to me is the greatest. And that's why he obviously leaves it to the end. Now listen to the following. He says, he gives this interpretation based on a verse in Psalms, in Tehillim. In chapter 106, verse 3, David HaMelech writes, Ashrei Shomerei Mishpat, fortunate are those who keep justice, Oseh Tzedakah Bechol Et, who perform righteousness at all times. And the Zera Shimshon asks on King David, is there a way to fulfill charity, tzedakah, all the time? You can't fulfill all the time. When you give, you're fulfilling. If you're not giving, you cannot be fulfilling. So what does it mean? Fortunate is the one who's constantly giving charity. And he answers it as follows. The Talmud in Masechet Ketubot, page 50, says that parents who provide and do for their children are fulfilling a tremendous level of chesed and loving kindness, to the point where it is 24/7. Now obviously, the younger the child, the more dependent on a parent. But parents, especially with younger children, are providing for their children 24/7. The children are helpless. The children need the help. Now, on the Talmud, that piece of Talmud, Rashi explains that parents are not obligated to provide and to do for their children. I mean, it's normal to. We learned this morning, actually, in the Sefer Hasidim, in our morning daily study of the Hokli Yisrael, that you cannot consider it as charity when you give to your children, because the reason why you're doing it is out of compassion and out of love for them. However, listen to what Rashi says. Rashi says, even though we do it out of love and out of compassion for our children, we're not obligated to do so. We bring children into this world, and it would not be the right thing to just dump them and leave them, but we're not obligated to do it, although we do it. And he said as follows, that when a parent does for their child, they are doing 24/7, that's all the time, and they're bestowing chesed, loving kindness, onto their children. So he takes this concept and he says that when God does for us, we refer to God as our parent, as our father. And he does for us 24/7. But how does he do for us? He does for us when we do what he asks from us. Now, to some, what he asks from us is too much. To others, it's obvious. However, when we fulfill the will of Torah, we are now allowing God to provide for us as a parent provides for their children in a 24/7 manner, in a very strong and special manner. And this is what it means, V'tzedakah tiyeh lanu, that when you fulfill all of the mitzvot, you fulfill what God mandated us to do in the Torah, then what he does for us is in a method of tzedakah, a method of sustenance, a method of chesed and loving kindness. But he takes it a step further. He says that very often a child does not really understand what their parents do to provide for them. Whether if it's making a living, keeping them healthy, almost no child does. And you know what he says? He says even some grown-ups, whether they're teenagers or they're grown-ups, they don't understand exactly what their parents do, and their parents could still be providing for them. He says that is exactly us to God, no matter how old we are. We don't understand God's business. That's how it's referred to. He sometimes says yes, he sometimes says no, sometimes with an open arm, sometimes with a clenched fist. It's always different with him. But when we just do the will of God, it comes from him. He does for us. We sometimes understand, we sometimes don't understand. But we are, as a child to a parent who constantly provides for us, that is our relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us, the Jewish people. So by us fulfilling the will of God, utzedakah tiyeh lanu, that him His deeds, His showering of blessing on us will be as a charity of a parent to a child. By the way, we relate to, and this is perfect to the upcoming month of Elul, which precedes Rosh Hashanah. There are three ways that the Torah, or at least our sages, refer to the relationship between God and the Jewish people. There is from a king to a subject, then there is from a master to a slave, but the greatest relationship is from father to son. And that's what we come and ask for God. We ask Him, Hashem, treat us like a son. Because a son is treated closer than a slave. And a slave is treated closer than a subject. But treat us like a son. Treat us like a daughter. That's what we do. That's what we ask for. How? Fulfilling the Torah. How can you fulfill the Torah? You have to learn Torah. Thank God that's what we're doing over here. Thanks God with the insight of the holy words of the Zera Shimshon, that we delve deeper and deeper into understanding what HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught us and how we're supposed to fulfill.